So that means essential parts of the government are being cut severely. And that also means that there's going to be more disaffected people. What does this have to do with disaster capitalism? Well, it has to do with a lot. They're currently manufacturing a crisis. They're manufacturing it. They are holding the government hostage so that they can put into place the policies that they want so that they can get the things that their lobbyists really, really want. And what is that? What is it? What ultimately do these lobbyists want? Because it's not the government, it's not our Congress critters, it's not anybody who represents the people of this country, right or left. What is it that they want? Well, they want total control of how you shop, of how you think. So there's your consumer choices, there's your education, how you get your health care, and they really, really want you to take personal responsibility. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have the means to take personal responsibility. How many of you are still paying back student loans? Yeah, all right. I bet you in a couple of years, you're going to still be paying those back. And how many of those are going to be paying, how many more students who are going to be graduating this year and years behind, or years ahead, are going to be paying them back? Do you know how many people in this country are going to be saddled with at least, on average, $27,000 to $30,000 worth of debt? In a consumer economy, how is that going to be sustained? How do we know? How are you going to buy things? How is this when you have wage stagnation for the last 35 years? How are you guys going to buy things? You think they care? They don't care. They don't care because what makes them money is your student loans. What makes them money is the fact that you got sick and you have to pay out of pocket. What makes them money is the fact that you have to go shop at a big box retailer because there's no other choices around. What makes them really, 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 really lobby in front of Congress? Because you can't choose what kind of cable internet. You can't choose what kind of person that delivers your electricity. Because even though they say there's choice, there's still BG&E and it's still Constellation Energy, and you're still going to have to pay them. There is no real competition in this country anymore. So how can we stop this? Well, get educated. Google Williamsburg Accord, read it. Read the open letter to Congress sent by the lobbyists and then funded by the mega corporations known as the Koch brothers and everybody else. Find out what efforts that are being made to privatize the most basic services in your country, in your state, and in your city. And find out if it is within your best interest. Sometimes privatization is within your best interest. But you have to make a critical choice and decide whether or not it is. And if it's not, and if it doesn't benefit your neighbor, then you need to get a voice. Get a voice out there, get involved, get out there, go to your city council, find out what is actually happening, and get involved. And follow the money. Find out who contributes. Find out the lobbyists. Now, I worked for several lobbyists. I actually worked for, some of the clients that we had were nonprofit organizations, and they were actually really pretty cool, and I really enjoyed working for them. Some of them were pharmaceutical companies, and they were okay. And then you had more evil organizations, such as large corporations that pretty much wanted to control the internet through abolishing net neutrality. Lecture for another day. Find out who contributes the most to what Congress critter. You can do that by opensecrets.org. Search your congressman, search your local person, search anybody. Find out who is contributing the money. It's there. Now there is also a thing called black money. After Citizens United was decided in the Supreme Court, we have no regulation on corporate money being spent, and we don't have to, there's no trail. You can sniff it out, and some people on the internet have done a valiant job in doing that. Follow that. Critical thinking is your key. The get involved and do something good. So the moral to the story is, I quit. I worked in politics after I left the law firm, and I worked in politics for years after that, and I still did it, and I wanted to believe that there was somebody doing some good out there. There isn't, except there is. I now work for a domestic violence organization that specializes in help for intimate partner violence, and I work in direct contact with people who are directly affected with this. And now I go to work every day, and my conscience is eased. Before it wasn't. I had a terrible time with it, but now I have a great time, and I love waking up in the morning, and I love going to my job. So now, thank you. Please get active. And also be sure to catch the outside theater's production of Dark Spell. Questions? Anybody have any questions? Yeah. Questions? Concerns? What?
Yeah, well, you talked about the privatization of basic services.
Yes.
And I remember seeing an article possibly a year ago about something that seemed to be between privatization of services and a tax issue. Essentially, it was a story in which there was a county-based fee for fire services that was paid to support the fire department. Someone had not paid that fee. I think it was $75 a year.
Yes.
And he had not paid that fee that year. And when his house was burning down, I believe this was in Tennessee.
Yeah, it was in Tennessee.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
The fire department actually refused to put out the fire.
That's true.
They shut up and said that they had not yet paid. So this is not technically a privatized fire department, but it's a fee-for-service model. What do you see as sort of in what ways have you seen, can you extrapolate, can you predict ways that this privatization is in some way hidden through essentially technically a fee-for-service model for a government agency?
Absolutely. The mega conservative wish list, the absolute wish list, would be to privatize all services. There are private police, there are private organizations that will, deliver fire service, but they will do it for gated communities. If you can pay, well, they would essentially just let it go to the free market. They say, well, you have X fire department and Y fire department. They're both offering the same services to fight fires in your neighborhood, but one charges $75 and one charges $175. That's their wish list to happen. That you pay for your own services, goods and services. Basic protections such as police and fire, and we've seen privatization of military, Blackwater being an example. Yes, it is essentially a hidden privatization of the fire department because the municipality didn't have enough money to run their fire departments, so they started charging their citizens a fee. And a private organization dealt with the fee for service, not the regulation. So you had a private organization saying, hey, you didn't pay your fee, so you can't go and service this individual. But yet it's still the firemen who have essentially decided that that's what they want to do, is save people from, fires, what probably wanted to. And unfortunately, they had to decline that service to this individual, and that person's house burnt down. That is essentially a hidden privatization. Absolutely.
So it's also with sanitation, with like waste management companies, things like that.
Yeah, waste management has been privatized. We basically contract all of our waste management to private organizations now, as you see it. Anybody else? Connor?
Can you talk a bit about them teaching that Sigma 6 there in schools to kids? That sounds crazy.
There is an academy called the Psi Academy in New Orleans that one of their tenets is most of the for-profit are no excuses. So they have motivational teaching skills that they teach to their teachers, and most of them are Teach for America teachers, and they go in and they're like, we're going to, motivation, power, intelligence, all the things. They chant these things just the same as you would do in business. You know, you would do in a sort of Six Sigma situation where you're in a business meeting and you're a salesperson, because that's what Six Sigma is geared towards. It's geared towards sales. Well, no. They're teaching this to these students. So instead of getting them interested in and motivated by the topics that they're learning, they're motivating them by chanting. And they're motivating by selling. Yeah, they're selling all this information to these kids, and it's really not working. Actually, the experiment that has been going on in New Orleans, they've got proponents on both sides. They say it's great, it's awesome. Look at the numbers that are coming out of these charter schools. And then they've got the other people on the other side going, not really, because you're looking at the graduation rates, and you're looking at the number of students who've been accepted to college. You're not looking at the number of students who actually go to college. You're not looking at the number of students who finish college. You're not looking at the number of students who can pay for college. So getting them ready in a college prep situation by motivating them because you can sell it to them is not teaching your children. It is not giving the most disaffected people, because those children are the ones who really need the outside help. They have single parent households. They have to deal with gun violence in their neighborhoods. They have to deal with outside influences that affect their learning in such ways that only a community-oriented educational system can help. Any other questions? Sure.
This term, the public-private partnership, is like thrown around all the time now and seems really buzzwordy. Can you explain what that is, what's happening in practice with that?
Well, it's basically, for instance, the charter schools in New Orleans, that is a public-private partnership. You've got the public school, the private organizations are running the schools, they're providing the teachers, they are using public funds in the form of grants from the government to run the organizations. $29.9 million go to the charter schools in New Orleans, as opposed to the public schools in New Orleans, which only get about 19 million. So you're getting almost $30 million are going. And the reason is because there's also private grants that go into that. So public-private partnerships are essentially private donors, private grants, and private organizations in partnership with government guidelines on how to run the school. And I say guidelines loosely because they can be negotiated in contracts. So it's mostly you're contracting out your education. So it is a buzzword. You're contracting out education to private organizations and private interests who are not really invested in the community, because the community could be in Baltimore and the organization that runs it could be in California. So they don't really care.